My name is Paul Elliott. I'm a trustee of the Kick It Out campaign. I'm watching Football Exclusives.
Footballexclusives.co.uk. Follow us on Twitter.
Okay, Max Whittle with Paul Elliott here at the Kick It Out conference. First of all, Paul, talk to us about the conference today, your speech, and what's happening in the event.
Well, it's an excellent conference. It's all about leading the way. It's all about trying to direct young people, to mentor them, because I think that's one of the key voids in young people is to have mentors. So in the game, if you want to be a volunteer, a referee, administrator, a coach, even indeed a player, what's a manager, what's the potential pathway to employment? How can you get there? And I think this conference is our second year running. It's been funded by the EHRC, which is the Equalities and Human Rights Commission, and I think it's been hugely successful because it's there to help young people develop. And I think whatever you do in life, there's a great role and a great value now for a mentor. And all the mentors here are all stakeholders within the game, from the Football League, the Football Association, the Premier League, the PFA, the LMA. You know, people work within the structures of the game. So I think that's very, very important for young people to know that there is that voice and that support mechanism out there for them.
And what do you think they've done so far in football for the game that's been positive?
Well, I think a lot of these young people, what they say is that until they come here, they felt empowered. You know, they come here, they soak up the knowledge, they grasp the experience, they grasp the information, and take that and apply that to their lives. And I think that the perfect example was Alex Eckhout. She came here as a mentee last year, spoke to various people, wanted to get involved in the game, didn't know how to get involved with the game. She spoke with Kathy Long from the Premier League. Kathy was really impressed with her, invited her for a job interview down at the Premier League. She works in the Premier League now in the media. So you've got Alex Eckhout, works in the Premier League. She's told her story today, and I think that's the best example through hard work, perseverance. You know what you can achieve for yourself. So I think that's a great, good practice example for any young person that wishes to be involved within the structures of the game.
But you look at things like the Luis Suarez event, Anton Ferdinand, John Terry. There's still work to be done.
I've been involved with the Kick It Out movement for the best part of 2 decades. And there's been some fantastic progress. We can't lie about that, because I was playing at a time when football represented society. It was ugly out there on the streets, in life, in London, and it was the same ugliness that was ported into the stadiums by then the BNP, called now the National Front. So, but I think you've got to look at the journey. And the journey has been a long journey where football's been used to educate, to mobilise, to strengthen communities, to bring people together like no other sport does. But what we've always said, and I've always maintained when I've spoken, we can't be complacent. And I think the 2 high-profile events has shown why there can't be no complacency. So through education, at grassroots, at the top, as the Suarez case has shown, if the evidence is beyond reasonable doubt, 0 sanctions has been applied, absolutely spot on. In the John Terry case, a man is innocent until proven guilty. So I think, there's a process to adhere to. That process is being carried out.
You spoke about journey. What are the sort of obstacles that you have overcome as a company?
Me personally?
As Kick It Out.
Oh, Kick It Out. I mean, what they've done is I really think it's been around education, and around using role models, and obviously the law. Because when I was playing the game, it was just accepted for somebody to racially abuse somebody, and that acceptance, that was from in the stadium down to your own fellow professionals on the pitch. Whereas now, they've created boundaries as to what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. And I think the profiling of the campaigning has kind of developed like society, where football now is very multicultural, very multiracial. That represents society. And I think the Kick It Out has been at the heart of that movement, using the power of football to apply sanctions, to put pressure on people in terms of its campaigning, which is very, very important, but also the way it's mobilised people and strengthened communities through education.
All the campaigns that you've done, is it still frustrating to see fans, like the Algeria game when England, some of England's players were abused, Does it frustrate you that maybe the fans section of this whole thing you can't really get into because they're not going to change?
Well, I think the fans actually have got better. I mean, make no mistake, because I think we've got a better type of support inside stadiums. I mean, if you look at it, there's greater gender diversification. You've got greater, there's more diversity. There's more Asians there, more women there, more children there, more disabled there. So I think in general terms, there's a better type of individual, because those that behave inappropriately, there's no space for them inside stadiums. Because I think actually supporters will challenge other supporters now. If somebody's behaving, whether it's homophobic abuse or racial abuse, they'll say, hey, that's unacceptable. So and I think now the stewarding within the Premier League stadiums, the reporting is far more effective and efficient. So I think, whilst there's still a minority out there, make no mistake, they exist. I like to feel that the majority will supersede the mindsets of that minority.
You said there's stewardship at the Premier League level. Is it going to filter down to the non-leagues?
Well, I think that's where the greatest challenges are for me, is all at the grassroots level. So I think the whole reporting lines have got to be better. The whole sort of joined up processes, once it's reported into the county FAs and the sanctions that's applied, that's an area that I think, we have to look at to improve. Because I think there's still big issues there at grassroots. We get the reporting here, we knows what goes on. That has to be dealt with the same zero tolerance sanctions applied when necessary, and education as well.
You mentioned briefly in your speech about you growing up playing football. What was it like for you as a youngster?
It was fun when I used to just enjoy myself on a Sunday, but I think my entry point into the professional game was a completely different ball game then, because I remember sort of playing, also in London, but also when you went to places like Leeds, Newcastle, Burnley. I mean, we're talking there in the late 70s, early 80s, and it was a very, very difficult place to play, because I represented that first generation of players who's trying to make their progress in the game. So then I was amongst the minority, like Garth, like Brendan Batson, like your Cyril Regis. So we had horrific abuse. So we just had to put up with it and just focus on our game and allow excellence to supersede any negativity.
And does that act as a motivator?
Absolutely. I mean, I've always said, the hardest thing was to focus on your remit, but also have to deal with this area as well. But that's how it was. My parents said to me, Paul, it's all about excellence. Be the best, be better than the best. And it's no coincidence that my journey took me into another number of different environments with different challenges, be it in the UK, be it in Italy, be it in Scotland, where I've experienced all different types of racism, and coming back to Chelsea as their first black captain in the 90s.
One final question. What do you see the future for Kick It Out?
The future's great. What's important now is the funding's very, very important, because we're in these hardened economic times at the moment, and I think that's very, very intrinsic. But I think we're growing the Kick It Out. It's a powerful, strong movement that's got a tremendous amount of credibility and respectability globally.
Okay, thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Footballexclusives.co.uk